So in this next session, we're going to hear from Denis Kennelly, who's IBM's General Manager for Storage. Unfortunately, Denis can't join us today due to the rail strikes that we've suffered in the UK, but he has pre-recorded a session, so we're going to play that for you now. I think you'll find it really insightful, so enjoy.
It's the number one issue with CEOs today. In a word, reputation. It's the number one issue with CFOs. Impacts their revenue.
At the end of the day, everything is impact.
It's the number one issue for CIOs.
Hey team, we have a threat that's just been validated.
It's their job. In a company that delivers amazing things, it's the number one solution in our company. Hello, everybody. My name is Denis Kennelly, and I'm the General Manager for IBM Storage. I want to talk to you today about data resilience and cyber resilience in the face of unprecedented ransomware attacks, and IBM's vision for addressing this issue. As most of you are probably experiencing firsthand, the explosive growth in data. Just to share a few facts, Gartner projects 23x growth of shipped petabytes by 2030, and that enterprises will triple the amount of unstructured data in the first half of this decade. At least 15% of enterprises see significant increase of their data need that needs to be managed in the next 12 months. All that data needs to be protected. So does that mean if I have a backup policy, I'm good? Gartner also anticipates by 2025, 40% of enterprises will require storage products to have inbuilt ransomware defense mechanisms and what we call cyber resilience or data resilience in the products. We will explore what that means to IBM and our vision for delivering same. Clearly, this is no longer an option or an optional requirement of us as a vendor. This is critical to what we deliver to our clients and to our partners going forward. So let's talk a little bit about ransomware and what we see happening out there. You know, in 2021, ransomware was the top attack vector that we saw out there by over 21% of all attacks that our IBM X4 incident response team worked on.
Yes, sir. I completely understand, sir. Thank you.
But we did see a decline compared to 2020, down from 23%. So is ransomware on the decline? Really, that's really about better law enforcement. Ransomware attack gangs being infiltrated and broken up.
Just got off the phone with the FBI. I think we have a situation.
But as we know in the cyber world and in the dark web, while you may be able to infiltrate it and remove a group, they tend to come back in another form. And the reality is that 61% of organizations have had some sort of a ransomware attack in the last 2 years, and they also pay the ransom. Among those organizations that pay the ransom, nearly 60%, nearly all, said about 6%, did so because they were worried about data leakage. And what does that mean? Because the downstream effect of a data leakage is it's a lot of company data, but also personal data of individuals and companies that interact with that entity. And the downstream effects and reputational damage are almost immeasurable. In terms of financial impact, you know, the average cost of a data breach is north of $4 million right now, per the Ponemon research, who have done some wonderful work on this over the years in their recent data breach report in 2022. And what makes this even worse is that, you know, organizations have repeat attacks. About 83% have had more than one ransomware attacks. Whether it is ransomware, data exfiltration, data is clearly the target. I want to say that again, data is the target. That is what everybody is after. So as mentioned on the need and why we need cyber resilience for data, we all know that the true cost of a ransomware attack is the downtime caused to your business. And business on average lose about 21 days of downtime due to ransomware. This is an average. I know from personal experience, you can tell I'm from Ireland, right? And our local health service was impacted over a year ago. It was a lot more than 21 days in terms of downtime. Maybe the systems came back, the initial systems came back, but the backlog of referrals and also treatments for critical illnesses such as cancer and the downstream impacts were many, many weeks and months as a result of the attack. So there are steps that we have shown to reduce the cost of these attacks by using, for example, adding fully deployed security and AI and automation. You can actually lower the cost of as much as by 3 million, or almost 65% the impact of a ransomware attack. We also that the best practices in setting up protection and backup policies. 73% of customers hit by ransomware recovered by using their backups. So now let's step back a little bit and let's talk about how we organize and how we organize an approach in the face of these unprecedented attacks. And we look to organizations like NIST, who have a well-defined framework, which is a very good reference point to actually organizing a plan and how you defend against these attacks. And there are 5 key elements to the NIST framework that they have laid out, which we all need to think about. First is identifying, right? Identifying the critical data, the critical assets that, if they get impacted, that really impact the business. We sometimes refer to these as the crown jewels of the business, right? Where to continue operations, you simply cannot continue operations without that data. Things like email, etc., are not crown jewels. It's the core assets of the business, the core data of the business. Of course, you need to protect those assets, and around discovering weaknesses before the attackers can in your protection policies. Ensuring data is stored in infrastructure that cannot be easily accessed by malicious activity. This involves things like identity management, access control, awareness, data security, and data protection, as well as proactive technologies. Detection. Detection is perhaps the most important stage in the NIST framework, and it's all about time to detection. If you accept the fact that, look, you're probably going to get attacked and the bad guys will get in, reducing the time to actually detect that some nefarious activity is happening is really critical, and that really helps your ability to recover quickly.
From a security standpoint, we are monitoring threats throughout the world. We're keeping the bad guys away from our financial systems, our 911 systems, our public infrastructure like the drinking water, the traffic lights. In Tyler, security is a top priority.
Traditional business continuity and disaster recovery solutions don't protect you. They simply propagate the problem. Traditional backup solutions likely won't protect you either. They are a frequent first target to more sophisticated attacks, compromising that last line of defense. So what happens next? You're left with 2 options: pay the ransom or go out of business.
Of course, when the unthinkable happens is how you respond, how you contain the mitigation, how you contain the attack, start to isolate the problem, but also communication, both internally and, more importantly, externally, to your customers, to your partners, and making sure that you're communicating clearly and accurately in what's going on.
Look at the video here. You mentioned those CEOs. It is an all-star list of attendees at the White House today. Some of the biggest heavy hitters in American business have been arriving at the Southwest Gate at the White House. Some of them even carrying their own bags, believe it or not, as we watch some of the arrivals here of some of the top executives coming in. One of those executives, Dr. Arvind Krishna, who's the CEO of IBM, did stop and talk to us, and he gave us a sense of what he expects today. Take a listen.
We are going to announce some deliverables, but what I'm hoping to get out of the meeting is a much more holistic and coordination on how both government and industry can work together on cybersecurity. It's the issue of the decade, so we got to go solve it.
He calls cybersecurity the issue of the decade.
That response is akin to, quarantine in the face of a biological infection or pandemic that we have all lived through for the last number of years. how you approach this, how you contain the infection, separate the good from the uninfected from the infected, so you stop the spread. It's no different in a ransomware attack. How you isolate your data, how you isolate the storage assets, and the tools that identify that are quickly to measure the scope of the damage, and then roping in, so to speak, that infected data, and being able to recover the areas where you need to recover quickly, and then focus your attention on where the infection has happened. Recovering. Get back up and running quickly and efficiently. And it's not just about getting the data back. It involves orchestrating all pieces of the organization, including the data. But at the end of the day, it's more importantly, it's about the applications and how the applications can access the data. And access the data, you may recover the data, but to make sure the data is in a state that is in consistent state that the applications can operate and continue to operate and run your business. And that's a critical part. And being able to do that, not on manual steps, but being able to do that in an automated fashion and doing it quickly. As a practitioner in data management, there are 6 capabilities that, when implemented, can help manage all the malicious data threats that help keep these businesses operational, while at the same time keeping your costs under control and including not having to pay that ransom, which unfortunately in a lot of cases, that is what's happening. These best practices start with ensuring the application and the environment have identity and administrative security that can help manage credentials and data access. These base capabilities can prevent threats, compromise credentials, and malicious attacks, together accounting for over 26% of these breaches. Next is the ability to monitor and identify data protection environment for ransomware and malware, and take advantage of the latest AI capabilities to determine if a data pattern anomalies are happening. Because in the face of a ransomware attack, you're going to see encryption rates go up, which is going to affect things like compression and other things, right? And being able to identify those very quickly is critical in your monitoring capability. Ensuring that the data, you have pervasive encryption, and making sure that the data at rest or in flight from the desktop through to the backend server is encrypted. And of course, who has access to those keys, to make sure that, when it is encrypted, that nobody can get access to the key and access the data. That you have multiple layers of backup for that critical data, depending on your needs. A 3-2-1-1 methodology for protecting the data that is critical to your business and getting your business back up and running. Also being able to isolate data in an air-gapped environment. Being able to actually, as the infection spreads, as we talked about earlier, when you have an air-gapped environment, clearly the attacker cannot get access to that, and making sure that can't be compromised. And finally, when a threat does happen, the need to recover quickly is paramount. And that comes into that tooling and that automation to be able to make sure you can recover quickly, and not relying on human error to actually get you back. In a lot of cases, that's where a lot of the problems happen, right, in terms of getting the data back. As a practitioner of data management, these are 6 capabilities, when implemented well, can help prevent and detect attacks quickly and respond even quicker. To ensure the best practices for your overall protection, right, businesses do not rely on one capability for protection or one SLA. I'm sure many of you have determined that SLAs for the different workloads and applications, ranging from those that you cannot afford to have any downtime, the ones that I talked about, those crown jewels of data loss, to those where some level of downtime or unavailability is acceptable. Email is the one I always pick on. For example, for workloads that are currently running with a high availability solution or doing synchronous mirroring to a DR site, you need a solution that similarly keeps the recovery time objective low in those environments, right? So you can really get those back quickly in the face of a cyber attack or a data corruption. There is not one answer for all workloads or data states. Each type of layer of protection has its pros and cons. For example, local and isolated snapshots are great, but what if an entire array is impacted? Then you need to go to a separate device will be necessary. Then you need to recover quickly Streaming backups to tape with a true air solution is probably the most secure. But unfortunately, in terms of recovery time objective, that they are the slowest, right? Then there are costs. Each type of solution comes with a cost, some less expensive than others that may cause longer outage and more time to recover. These are the trade-offs and the balances of business you got to run. And it goes back to that identification of the data. And the graph shows, depending on where you are, right, that your recovery speed and what you can afford as a recovery speed versus the layers of protection, and that trade-off that we all have to go through. And it goes back to that identification of the data and the workloads and what's critical and where you need to afford to invest in. Customers implementing data protection strategies use either a mix of primary snapshots and backups or secondary storage, or solely backup to their secondary storage. Both have their challenges. Often customers have different tooling from different vendors, which is a real problem, and being able to administrate those environments. Or there are different departments within the enterprise. You have somebody running the primary storage and you have a backup admin. Sometimes they don't always communicate well together. And the ability, and that comes to the fore when you're trying to recover quickly, where you have to have tight communication to understand what is going on each side of that coin.
Hey, guys, are you seeing this on the firewall?
All right, team, we have a threat that's just been validated.
Keeping all copies on, we say one side is cost prohibitive, say on primary storage. So having a mixture is ideal. But we have to be seamless and consistent across our customers internally that are using this data, and being able to see a full end-to-end tool chain, so to speak, or value chain of your data across the environment. Due to the data protection landscape often being so silent, there's no longer just a recovery problem, but a security problem. As more anomaly detection gets built into storage software, security analysts who monitor for threats, perform incident response, also need to have access to this information. Because as we said at the very start, data is the thing that the attacker is after, and being able to infiltrate the data assets. If the security or the CISO is blind to these incidents and these events, then they are missing a whole piece of the equation. They may be doing a great job in protecting the network. They may be doing a great job in protecting identities. But if they're not watching what's happening with the data in real time, they're missing that whole piece, and that may have got into the environment. The IBM vision is not only to provide a holistic view for the storage and data security process, but to integrate threat detection across the data production lifecycle, or data protection lifecycle, sorry. At each hop across that lifecycle, from primary to secondary or to tertiary storage, detection at the storage layer, such as analysis of file metadata using statistical analysis, is critical. And we're working on innovations where we're looking at patterns in the data from primary storage. I mentioned in passing, if you're looking at where your ransomware attack, one of the things that happens is the data starts to get encrypted. You can see a lot of I/O activity on the storage array, which is anomalous to what you normally see at that time of day or that time of week. And being able to identify that and detect that without generating false positives and being able to do that accurately is critical in some of the tooling and the research that we're working on. To deliver this vision of a cyber resilient data production or data protection lifecycle, it's a team sport. It's not just IBM or IBM storage. It's also partnering with our IBM security brand, where we have tremendous assets in the form of QRadar or our security and event and management console, but also with other security vendors who deliver similar capabilities, and to be able to furnish them those capabilities with insights into the data and what's happening in the data protection lifecycle, right across from primary to secondary to tertiary storage, as I said. And also working with our partners such as Predator, who have some wonderful technologies which actually look at our backup capabilities and understanding when the backups themselves have been infiltrated. Because a ransomware attack doesn't have any sense of time of where it is going to hit you. And it may be sitting dormant in the environment for quite some time before it raises its head. And being able to look at that across the entire life cycle is what is required. And why I make this a team sport of both IBM, our partners, and technology vendors such as Predator, and bringing these capabilities to our clients. Hopefully you've got some insights into our vision on what it is for cyber resilience and data protection from IBM and how we're working together with wonderful partners like Predator and others going forward. Thank you.
And we're into the final session, which is the one I know most of you have been waiting for. It's the Spectrum Protect World Championships. Every year so far, we've had a different guest host. I'm absolutely delighted to tell you that we've got an IBM legend back, a guy that's recently retired over in Tucson, Arizona, Harley Puckett.